welcome to the Relationship Hub. My name is Michaela, and today on the Relationship Hub we are going to be talking to Zara and Cal-I Jonel, who are going to be telling us their relationship story. And of course, because the Relationship Hub is all about being open and honest and truthful, we're going to hear about the ups and downs of married life for them, some of the pressures that they perhaps have felt over the years, and what's happened to them as well throughout lockdown. But also, you're going to hear one of the best engagement stories that you're ever likely to hear. So please do listen on as we hear more from them. Just to give you a little bit of background about them, Zara, she runs an education program called Love Literacy, and this is for all age children. And Cal-I is a musician and actor. They've been married for 13 years, they've got 2 children, and they live in Romford in London. And I am so pleased to see you both here today. Thank you for being on the Relationship Hub.
Wonderful to be here. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Well, let's start off from the very beginning, because this is often where I like to start when I'm chatting to couples about their relationship. Where did it all begin? How did you meet? Just a bit of an overview of how things started.
Well, to be honest, we met when I was born. My mum. There's a picture of Cal-I's mum holding me as a newborn baby.
Wow.
So yeah, our grandparents kind of came together in friendship because they were new to the country, had recently come from different islands in the Caribbean. And so it was just a sense of community, you know, talking to each other in the playground while the kids were running around. So we've actually known each other all our lives.
That's amazing. But presumably at that very, very young age, there weren't any particular sparks flying apart from people cooing and oohing over you, I've no doubt, Zara. So when did what happened? How did you begin to be you two?
Yeah, I guess that was when I actually went to Jamaica with my family, and I had to come back early to work. I was working at Tesco at the time. And I stayed with Zara's family for a 5-day period whilst my parents were still out there. So from years back, she was always the annoying little friend, and to me she was just an irritating little girl called Zara, and that was it. And then when I stayed at her house for the 5 days, we just got to talking and spent a lot of time really getting to know each other. And I saw a different side to her. I discovered that she had liked me for a while, and I didn't know. And then we just really got, I guess there was a greater level of intimacy we built as friends in that very intense period of time.
Yeah.
And I then began to develop feelings for her.
And we were about, 16?
Yeah, I would say at that point it was 16 and 17.
Yeah. Roughly those older teenage years when you start to get feelings for people that feel a bit more real and significant, other than just a little bit of a crush here and there. So what about your families? What did they think? Because obviously it's almost like you've grown up together because you were so kind of much around one another, and then you have this time together staying at Zara's house with her family, and something's beginning to change. So were your families like, God, this is brilliant? What did they say?
I think they were surprised, definitely surprised. My mum kind of said, it's a bit close to home, because Cal-I's family are so loved, so respected, such a huge family. There was pressure, they didn't want it to go wrong, and then have the families, have any issues amongst the families. But having said that, Cal-I is so loved that actually it was just a blessing to be connected to this lovely, lovely man.
Amazing. So this point of kind of getting to know each other, did the sort of dating start immediately? I mean, did you then think, right, what have we been waiting for? We've got this friendship. Let's start dating.
So at the time we were friends, of course, and we got together, and there was a lot of pressure. So a lot of people were like, okay, Cal-I and Zara are together.
Very excited.
We're very popular at church. We're very popular amongst our friends. And it was like, okay, what's going on? So there was a lot of that going on. We had our first date. I remember going to the movies and buying her a rose. And she had her birthday around that time as well.
So sweet.
Yes. And then lo and behold, after all of the pressure, Zara decided that she wanted to be friends because she didn't want the pressure. So she says she dumped me.
I did.
I say
later.
it was a collective discussion. Like there were peace talks.
Did it hurt your pride? Did it hurt your pride a bit?
It did. No, it did. Honestly, I think it did, because for me, I just thought, gosh, I'd allowed myself to be really vulnerable, and there was this girl that I didn't really like before. She said she liked me, and I've developed feelings, and now she's saying she doesn't want to be with me. Like, what is going on? What does a girl want?
I think I just didn't like the label of you're his.
Right.
It was too soon for me. I just wanted to be Zara, and I wanted to be his friend, and I wanted to develop a friendship, but without the lights, and without the spotlight and the pressure. So we then just developed a friendship, and it was brilliant. We talked for hours, constant topping up of the phone.
Yeah, when it was 1-to-1 at the time, wasn't it?
Yeah,
It wasn't T-Mobile or EE.
No.
1-to-1.
Yeah.
But for us, it worked.
So it was this. So what happened then? You kind of went from out of the spotlight, and it's just all about the friendship, which is actually where it began anyway. Those kind of that time when you stayed for that week, it's when the friendship could grow and so on. And actually, that's such a great foundation, isn't it, for any relationship? But for a romantic one, solid friendship is great. Knowing that you can hang out with someone, have a laugh, and get on is so important, isn't it? So where did it go from there then? Because if you dumped him and then you're friends, and what happened next? Did you? And again, things like university. How did all this kind of fit in with you two being you two?
Well, it was important for me to still go to university and not to not go or to change where I was going because of our friendship and because of how close we were. So I did. I went to Oxford, Brookes in Oxford. My dad says I went to Oxford. It wasn't Oxford, Dad. And it was quite an emotional time because I think for Cal-I, it was like being left behind.
Yeah.
And that thought that, who am I going to meet? What friendships will I forge?
Yeah. I think that for me, because I stayed down in London to study. I went to university, so I'd taken a year out, and then when Zara went to uni, I went to university the same year. And I was just afraid that she was going to meet, Charles and his dog. That's always my memory of that, and that would be it. I wouldn't see her again. So I decided to give her this red box, pour my heart out. I wrote a really detailed 100-page love letter. I don't know how many pages it was now, but I just laid it all bare and just put some things in there as a keepsake.
So this was the red box. This is where you put all this stuff in, did you? So there's this red.
Yeah,
so was it a gift box? Tell me about the box.
It was like a shoebox, beautifully wrapped with red wrapping paper with gold hearts. On the inside of the lid was a picture of Cal-I's cute face. And then there was a red rose for love, yellow for friendship, and white rose to represent purity. Right. And there were cards in there from him, and it was really beautiful. And he just said that's my gift to you to keep hold of and to look after.
A piece of my heart.
A piece of his heart. There you go. Yeah. And I did. I looked after it for the whole time I was at university.
And throughout this time, you were still friends, as it were. You weren't actually boyfriend and girlfriend, or had it moved on a bit more by this time? If you're sending a box with roses and pouring out your love.
Yeah, I guess that's pretty invested.
Yeah, that's like that's more than friends.
Yeah, it's more than friends.
Don't forget me.
I would say more. Because I used to say to my friends, "We're more than friends. We're less than lovers." And we got it from a book we were reading called Boy Meets Girl. And my friends used to absolutely hate when I said that. Because they were just so used to the idea of, well, no, it's your girlfriend. I said, well, no, it's not that, but it was difficult to explain it to all of my friends at the time.
Sometimes people kind of want you to be that couple because they love it so much, and you're disappointing them by not doing it, But, it's good because you kind of had the conversation with each other about where the relationship was going, and, both knew where you stood. So you didn't feel pressurised, presumably, by this box, Zara, because it could feel a bit like, this is a bit full on. He's pouring his heart out and roses and, picture of himself in the box, that kind of stuff.
To be honest, no, I thought it was lovely. And I just thought, okay, I've got to make sure I look after this, travelling all the way to Oxford. And so no, I didn't feel pressure at all, to be honest. And what we would do is if he sent me a card for a birthday or whatever, I'd always add it to the box. So the box kind of grew over the years. Oh,
that is very sweet. That is really sweet. So when you'd gone to university, you've got this box, which is kind of really a declaration of love, and what's going on between the both of you. You're at university, you're obviously very young. When did you decide that you actually were going to spend the rest of your lives with each other? When did you think engagement should happen? I mean, obviously you've got carrying on relationship both at university, but you've got to get to a point, I suppose, which you must have done, where you thought, actually, we need to make a decision about this.
Yeah. So we'd always known that we were heading that way, and our hearts were invested in that regard. But I guess it was around 2004, I think we decided to officially sort of, court then. And then by 2005 is when I decided it was time to ask the question. Spoke to Zara's parents, organised to propose to her on Christmas Day of 2005. We said we weren't going to get each other gifts that day, and you got me a gift.
I did.
Which was really annoying. Yes, because she looked disappointed, but I thought, right, let me just play it down. So yeah, that day, that evening, we decided that we were going to, I was going to propose. Well, you probably tell this story a bit better than I do, actually.
Yeah, so I mean, we had the intention, we invested in a car together, a little £500 car.
Yeah.
We'd even, I think, opened a savings account.
That's right, yeah.
So we'd started the process of kind of being a unit.
Yeah.
But I had no idea he was going to propose, none whatsoever. So he picked me up from my mum's friend's home in Dagenham, took me for a drive, but he told me to bring the box, the red box with the...
Right, okay. So you kept it after all that time, you'd still got it?
Yeah,
you?
4 years.
4 years. I kept it.
That was a relief that you had it, wasn't it?
Honestly. So I actually had to go under my bed or in the wardrobe and find this box, brought it along with me.
I think I sent you a few text messages. Bring the box.
I'm sure you remember. Otherwise it wouldn't have worked. And so he went to the boot of his car and there was a Bible.
Yes,
and there was
that's right.
The box and a series of instructions that told me to open the box, and there was a kind of ring box, but I didn't think that it was for a ring. I followed the instructions and it had a scripture, Proverbs 22.
Proverbs 1822, isn't it?
1822.
Yeah.
And so then I went to the scripture, it said, he who finds a wife finds a good thing.
And in a ring box there was an instruction to tear at the picture. The box.
He told me to tear at the picture in the box. The picture that
in the red box
that I had looked after for 4 years, that I'd promised never to tarnish. He now wants me to tear the picture of his face. So I go to the corner and just very carefully tear it. And beneath the picture of Cal-I were the words in capital letters, "Will you marry me?"
That's
and then I
amazing.
turn, and he's on his knee with a ring in his hand. And that was our beautiful... I screamed a lot. And
yes, yeah, there were lots of screaming.
and there was wine.
I did bring some wine.
You brought wine, glasses.
So actually, as well, you fully redeemed yourself then, Cal-I, for not buying Christmas presents when Zara had, and apparently you'd not followed through. But really, that's amazing.
There was a plan.
That is such an amazing story. The fact that when you went off to university, Zara, with that box, and you knew, Cal-I, this is it, definitely. And that's like a massive commitment, isn't it? Did you have any moments in that time where you're thinking, oh my goodness, I don't know if I really want that picture to be there and for her to find those words. If she finds them now, I'm not feeling it. I mean, did you have any moments like that, or did that never happen?
You know what? That's the first time I've ever been asked that question. Actually, I don't remember having any moments like that. I think I was so invested and I was so determined, and I believed in the plan. I really believed that if she holds onto this box, it's either going to be the greatest story to tell or it's going to go horribly wrong. But I think when once I did it, I was like, okay, it's done. She's got the box. And I just almost sort of allowed it to leave my memory. I compartmentalized it until the day had come. Yeah.
That's just an amazing story, genuinely. I mean, I've never heard of a proposal like it. And that's just so special, isn't it? Really, really amazing. I'd like to say I wish I'd been there, but it would have spoilt the moment, I'm sure. So obviously you proposed. It's all very exciting, the amazing proposal, the ring and everything. When did you decide to get married? Was it because you've known each other for a long time, you've got a great friendship, but you're still very young? So what was the next stage?
And we were still studying,
yes.
Michaela, so we were still doing our degree, just finishing that final dissertation, which is quite full on.
Yeah.
Then we both had plans to do teacher training, so we actually planned the date for 18 months after the proposal.
Right. Okay. So
which is a long engagement, I think.
2007.
I think if we went back in time, we would definitely do a quicker wedding.
Would you?
Yeah, I think we would.
Why do you say that? Why would you do it? Why would you do it quicker? Because some people would listen and think 18 months, you need time to organise and prepare. And others might think, oh, well, if you know, why hang about? So you get different schools of thought. What was your thinking behind this? Why would you say, actually, I'll do it quicker?
I think because, like Cal-I said, he knew 4 years prior.
Yeah, a long old wait.
And I had a crush on him when I was a schoolgirl. Like, I think we were quite mature and we knew what we wanted.
Yeah.
And it was quite strenuous, the process of 18 months of preparation and
whilst training.
And actually, we're such a team. That's our whole lives have been teamwork, before marriage, since marriage. So actually, we would have gotten through everything together. It would have been fine.
Yeah. It's interesting because there's always this sort of mindset, isn't there, of, like you get married and then you're sort of giving stuff up and it's all change, and it is all change. But actually, like you've just said, you knew you wanted to be together. So there wasn't necessarily a need to wait. Some people do perhaps need a bit more time, but actually when you're so sure and you've had so much, actually navigating the hard things together is part of being the team that you spoke about and being married, isn't it? So nevertheless, you did wait 18 months. You said it was stressful. Why was it stressful? What was the stress? Was it just the normal stress of organising a wedding, or?
Yeah, I think the stress of organising a wedding with the politics that come with it. Of course, we're bringing two families together. I was the first child in my family to get married,
and so was I.
And so was I. So there was a lot of pressure there, and we come from Caribbean families. We were in a big church community, so there was a lot of pressure to do things a certain way. On the one side, we saw the wonderful community that came together and supported us to make it happen. But I think with all of the kind of just pressures of who to invite, how many people are going to come, who feels they need to be there,
what colour the bridesmaid should wear,
it's just
how many items of jewellery.
That just came with all of a lot of pressure that we perhaps would have dealt with differently if we were a bit older. I think with slightly more older heads, we would have gone, actually, that's definitely not what we want. This is what we want, and this is what we're going to do. But I think being young and still, even though we were mature, still impressionable, we felt the need to kind of comply and work with everyone's kind of demands as well.
Yes. And then on top of that, my mum's losing her eldest daughter, her firstborn, her best friend, her companion, as a single parent, and I didn't understand how to support her or navigate that. On the other hand, Cal-I's parents are migrating to the other side of the world.
Yeah, a week after we got married, they moved to Jamaica. Yeah, that's right, to live. Yeah.
So you didn't take that personally, I assume.
No, I think me deciding to leave, because I've got six of us, me and my siblings. But when I decided to leave home, I think my mum thought, okay, the three eldest have gone. There's two more under me. So she thought, right, they were like, okay, Cal-I's getting married. Let's just do the move and go to Jamaica whilst the two youngest are still quite young. Yeah. But then I think that did cause some friction with me and my mum. And I remember having some arguments with her, just thinking, why are we at each other? But I realised it was because I was moving out into the flat that me and Zara bought before we got married. And there was a lot of that pressure as well around the time,
Yeah, no, absolutely. I can understand that. And so, I mean, just a very quick question. So in hindsight, would you have chosen a quicker, smaller wedding as well then, would you say? Or...
Yeah,
I still don't know if that would have washed. I just feel like I don't know if we would have gotten away with it.
There is something about community weddings, isn't there, as well? And I think it does depend, doesn't it, on, because obviously there are the pressures, but actually some of those pressures just are part of life, and some of those things are perhaps extras that you may have been able to have avoided. And like you say, maybe if you'd been older, you would have navigated some of that slightly differently in how that would have looked. So, okay, so you're married, it's been a long time in waiting for you, Cal-I, because you'd proposed years ago. It must have felt like eons ago. So how was it being married? How did you find married life? How did it all begin? Because I think sometimes there's so much emphasis on a wedding day, and you've talked about obviously there's lots of stuff going on and family and so on, and it's almost everything is kind of focused on the wedding day. But of course, it's just one day, and actually marriage is about the rest of your lives together. So, how was it? How did it begin?
It was lovely. I mean, we were so blessed by our community, family, church, that we had no debt coming out of being married, coming out of our wedding. We had this lovely little flat, and we had no furniture at first, but we would have picnics on the carpet. And that's where we'd eat our dinner, and it was just lovely. The quiet, after the big kind of hurrah of the wedding, the quiet of it just being the two of us tucked away in this lovely, cute little one-bedroom flat. I really enjoyed it. And of course it got busy because Cal-I worked, we were heavily involved in church. And so there were times where we would just kind of, we had this little joke where there'd be a pile of Mr. Muirhead books and a pile of Mrs. Muirhead books, and we're looking at each other going, this is great, isn't it? Just like marking away of a night, you know.
Yeah.
So there were times when it was very busy, but I really just enjoyed being with my best friend.
Yeah. And just to be clear, you used to be a teacher, Cal-I, which is why you're saying about, and your actual surname is Mr. and Mrs. Muirhead, isn't it? And that's why.
That's right, yeah.
Just because I suddenly thought, you know, in terms of people listening to that, so you're both teachers. So that must have been full on as well, both teaching, married together, and family, presumably they're all for this anyway. But you mentioned about your mum letting go, Zara, and, you know, how did that play out once you were married? Did that get easier, or do you think that there were still tensions? And Cal-I, how did you find that as well? So question to both of you really, how it was for you, Zara, and Cal-I from the son-in-law point of view, how did that go?
So I think for me, if I'm honest, there was a little bit of a grey cloud over me, which ultimately would affect Cal-I, and because it would affect our marriage, our relationship. I think the way I left home wasn't the ideal. It wasn't great. It wasn't with the full blessing of my family. So it was tough. It was tough because there was expectations on me as the eldest daughter to support my brother, to support my family, to you know, I was being pulled in multiple directions, and there was just this desire just to be with my husband and just to enjoy my married life as a newly married couple. I was only 22 when I got married, so still so young. So it was tough, and actually over the years, and probably more in the recent years, I've unpacked that a bit more and have understood it a bit more, understood that relationship, understood myself. But that definitely caused it cast a shadow for me.
I would say definitely I always say the first 4 years, that period of time when it still felt like there was the umbilical cord being cut.
Yeah.
For me, I would say it was a case of me having to feel like I was picking up the pieces of problems that were happening or tensions, and then feeling maybe I'm the reason because I've come in and I've taken Zara away, and I think I tried to be the peacemaker, but it did require a great deal of patience and me sort of putting aside some of my own kind of feelings to try to feel as though I was supporting Zara in the best way that I could.
Yeah. And it's difficult, isn't it, when you're trying to balance those things and you're adjusting to prioritising one another, but still making your family know they're loved and cared for. But it is difficult because it is still important that you make sure you put one another first, isn't it, in a marriage? So do you feel as though, I mean, you said 4 years, Cal-I, that those first 4 years, there was that kind of almost perhaps treading on eggshells, would that be fair to say?
I would say, yeah.
So what was the turning point then? What happened after those 4 years where you felt, okay, I can handle this now, or it's different? Did you have to chat to your mum, Zara? I mean, how did you work that out?
I think a couple of things changed. Having children. Having children shifted the focus.
Definitely.
Because there are, grandchildren and the love, and that we have new priorities now, and that kind of was a really good
kind of bonding experience, wasn't it?
Yeah, it really was. And it was a second chance. It was a chance for my mum to really bond with her granddaughter, my firstborn, in a way that just meant, you could kind of have a do-over. It was so that was really lovely. I think moving home, so we moved slightly out because we were closer to Seven Kings, then we moved further out into Chadwell Heath, Romford, and I think therapy helped me because there were things that were happening. For example, I had a panic attack at work. I found work really intense in this new role at a new school, and the root of it went back to my childhood, but I didn't know that. So actually being able to engage in some self-care and therapy helped me to kind of see the bigger picture of what the challenges were that I was facing. And then as I got stronger, I was able to turn to Cal-I and say, you can be honest with me. Like, I need to hold you as much as you hold me. I don't need you to protect me as you did in the early days, because actually we're a unit and we have to be strong as a team. And do you know what I mean? I don't want there to be such an imbalance where I am constantly being held, and therefore Cal-I's needs are being overlooked, you know.
Yeah. And I think as well, it's interesting that you said that, you had some therapy. When things are tense or difficult in family, and as couples, there can be a temptation to point the finger at them. Sometimes we find it harder to look inwardly and think, okay, what's going on with me? If change needs to happen, should it start with me? Maybe it should. And the fact that you were able to kind of see that in yourself, and therefore that investment in you is an investment in you two as a couple is really, I think, very sort of, poignant, isn't it? And it enabled your relationship to grow. And I guess as well, having the maturity to see that. And part of, going back to what I said earlier, Carlisle, about the 4-year period, there's also the growing up stage as well, isn't there? The fact that you were both very young and that maturing and dealing with those sort of changes. Just, to sort of take that a little bit further, how important do you think it is to be, in terms of your relationship working and lasting, the fact that you were married and that commitment to one another, how important was that in those more difficult times? Because you could have felt like saying, oh, actually, this is like a lot of hard work. And rather than having therapy, say, this isn't working so well, I don't know if I've got the energy to deal with our relationship. I mean, how important do you think is marriage and commitment to you as a couple?
Yeah, I think it's vital. The commitment. For me, I've always said that it's not just my respect and love for Zara, but it's my value that I place on the institution of marriage itself. And I think that is so important, is that we've decided, and we decide every day that we're going to love, or we decide that we're going to work through it, even if I've got to swallow my pride, and sometimes it's difficult. And then obviously, of course, kids come along, and then expectations change, or stakes are higher. And we just feel that it's so important for us to go back to that foundation, which was our friendship, because when it's all said and done over each other's throats or things aren't working out, actually it started with a friendship. And I think that foundation has really helped us to kind of get through a lot of the more difficult periods. So almost reflecting back on those moments, and as you say, as a foundation of things as well. I mean, I'm interested as well in your word, or the description you had there of we decide every day. It doesn't sound very romantic or sexy or, I mean, why do you think you use that word decide?
I think it is a choice, isn't it? We make choices all the time. I chose this colour to go with this top. We're constantly making choices. And I think making a choice to love and to be forgiving and to listen and not to fly off the handle and to make sacrifices is what, for us, has made our marriage successful. It's what's got us through the difficult times, is making that decision.
I think it's what makes us human as well. Really, when I gave that box at age 19, all of the fluttery feelings were there, and this idea that that's it, Zara's the one for me. I've only got eyes for Zara. That was it. That's all I could see. And then we evolve and we change, and we realise that okay, actually, sometimes we get on each other's nerves. Sometimes we get irritated, and I make mistakes, and we just have to decide that actually I think there's a lot more that happens in life that we can decide how we respond to it.
That's right.
I guess is what I'm saying,
And I think that decision is bigger than us. Our marriage, our partnership is, of course, it benefits us. Of course, we learn and grow from it, but it benefits our children. It benefits our community. We've had a lot of people living in our house. We've had Cal-I's sister, my sister. We've had small families in need. But actually, our togetherness, our bond, has supported our wider community. So I think the decision we make is because it's bigger than us. That's how I feel.
Yeah, no, I think that's really important, and I really agree with that. I think it's just it's nice to hear that, because I think sometimes we get caught up in society, in the romance, and it all being fairy tale like, and actually love is a feeling, but if we just relied on that only, we'd be in trouble, because love has to be about an action and a decision, doesn't it? Because even though I love my husband, sometimes I don't feel that love as strongly in those annoying moments, and it's things like that, isn't it? And overcoming that. So on that kind of note, really, what would you say have been some of the most sort of poignant times of your life together, your marriage, and perhaps, the challenging moments, I guess, alongside the biggest celebrations? What would those two things be, do you think?
Okay, so I know definitely one of the biggest celebrations is definitely having children. I was there when both of them were born. Thankfully, gratefully, there.
Special moment, definitely, isn't
yeah,
it? Yeah.
And Elijah was born in water, so that was a special moment as well. And just not passing out was a great accomplishment.
He actually caught me when I passed out.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think those. Yeah, you kind of fainted during the first one. But I think just those moments where we really had to. If there was ever a time when we had to stick together, it was that time. And just having those children, I think for me that I always knew that I was ready to have kids anyway. But I feel like I grew up years beyond overnight and just was like, okay, like we're in this.
Yes, and then what it did is it made us review our priorities.
Right.
So actually where we were probably unhealthily involved in lots and lots of different activities at church, we streamlined and we...
What do you mean by unhealthily involved? What does that mean?
The reason why I say that, Michaela, is because I felt that we stretched ourselves so thinly that we were actually kind of not as effective as we could be.
Just involved in too many different areas, weren't we? I think we were 10 different areas within the church we were involved in together collectively.
Yeah.
And it was
too
just
much.
And while still being teachers with responsibility at work, it was crazy.
And time for each other, presumably, must have gone out the window a bit there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I think when we've had our firstborn, it was, this is it. We now need to streamline and really prioritise. So although of course, having children comes with its challenges, it was actually a real blessing for us.
Yes, as you say, that point of review. And so do you think actually then, because sometimes people feel that when they have children, they have less time together. Do you think maybe you ended up having more time together because you had a big kind of, let's look at life here and let's cut some stuff out?
Yeah, definitely. We spent way more time just together with the children, obviously. So great time with the kids. But also, now that the kids are a bit older, we're making sure that the time we have together, just us two, is really quality, but then having great time with them as well. So we readdressed the balance. I think literally that same week, I just went, that's it. Everything else could take a back seat.
Yeah, absolutely. So what would you say then to the big challenges in that you've faced as a couple during married life?
The big challenge for me, and I remember we had the discussion in premarital counselling, and I was so naive. I thought, please, the circle, how closely your family are involved with in your new family. Okay. And I thought, they can be kind of there, and the counsellor was suggesting that perhaps they should be a bit further apart, and that has been the biggest challenge for me, learning how to say no to my family. And and drawing a line and saying enough is enough. And actually, Cal-I's done the same. He said, that's never happening again. So that's been a huge challenge. And now they've sandwiched us. So we've got family on either side of us. And Cal-I's family don't always get, because his parents are in Jamaica. So it's also kind of making sure that we're there for them and we look out for them as well. But that has been the biggest challenge for me is not apologising for being married and being happy. You know, I have family members who perhaps are not married, who perhaps don't have the life that we have, and being humble and grateful, but also enjoying it and
not feeling guilty.
Right, not feeling guilty for being married, for the love that we have. And I remember someone in my family said to me, Zara, you've had a really difficult childhood, but I believe God gave you your latter would be greater, and actually Cal-I is my blessing. He is, for the difficulty that I had, actually I've got a really wonderful, supportive husband. So that's my thing. That my challenge was understanding where family should sit in our relationship, in our lives.
And it's easy to kind of allow family maybe to be too intrusive in one respect. I mean, the thing is, being married and family life is about the whole family. It does, it's not they should be excluded, but as you say, it's getting that balance right. And I assume that your families would have endorsed that. They would agree with that, even if at the time they would pall on you? I mean, how did they feel if there's obviously a shift in your thinking, Zara? Do they then feel isolated or pushed away?
I think it was very difficult. I think they found it really, really challenging because I had just started my teaching career. So they didn't get the benefit of an adult daughter who works full time and was able to financially support the family or, anything like that. And I think there was an unhealthy expectation on me. And I think it was difficult. Cal-I's family, not so much because he has mum and dad together. So they understand that bond that a couple have and the importance to leave and cleave. But for my side, I think it was tough.
So that process of them adjusting and recognising that this was important, that you did prioritise each other, and at the same time you seeing that as well, has presumably impacted your marriage and made a difference there. But I guess over time your mum in particular has kind of accepted that and understands that. Yeah,
and embraces it and loves us and loves the unit that we have, and she's benefited from it. When she was poorly, she came and lived with us for a few weeks, and so she enjoys the unit that we have. It just took a while, I think.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's really interesting. Now, you mentioned earlier that when you had children, that there was almost this sense that you kind of pushed out loads of stuff in your diary by the sounds of it, which is also sounding a little bit like lockdown, isn't it? Everything from our diaries has been kind of crossed out, eliminated, deleted. It's been the year of cancellation, hasn't it, really, 2020 and into 2021. So in one respect, you kind of had a bit of an experience of cutting stuff out. So did you find lockdown as a family, as a couple? Did you find it easy because you'd done something similar before almost, or did it help you grow? Have you learned anything new about each other? Lots of questions here, but often people say marriage is a journey and we can still learn about each other. Is that true? So what have your experiences been?
Yeah, so I'll say because at the beginning of the lockdown period, in January last year, I changed careers anyway in 2018, and I was working in the West End, so life had changed where Zara was quite busy at home with the kids. I was working 8 shows a week. So we were really, really busy. And then, of course, the lockdown happened in March, and that just changed instantly. Yeah. So interestingly enough, even though it was a great and exciting start to the year, having the lockdown, at first it was kind of readjusting, thinking about how we were going to run Love Literacy on and then migrating online. So we then had to, there was 2 things. The time we had with the children as a family was awesome and is awesome. Yeah. So we flexi school our children. So we have them at home on a Friday and they go to school Monday to Thursday. We only started that September 2019. Yeah. So we then thought, okay, we've got even more days with them now. So that was a really great bonding experience for us. And just stopping and me realising that, my goodness, though it was great, 8 shows a week, I wasn't seeing the kids. They would go to bed and I'd come home at 11:30. It was mad. So it really helped us to just readdress kind of and work out what it was that was important for us and what it is we actually needed. So I know my love language is quality. One of it is quality time. I wasn't getting any of that on 8 shows a week. So that was amazing for me personally, I would say.
And then for me, for both of us, I think because we stopped, the whole world stopped, the whole country stopped so dramatically, it was a shock to the system, and then it made us see our children for who they are, see them more clearly, but it made us see each other more clearly. Yeah, and it was tough. I remember a couple of conversations in the park, when taking the kids on their daily exercise hour, and we had some really tough conversations, and we unpicked some things, and it was difficult, and it taught me, this was last summer, and it taught me that, my goodness, it really is a journey. You are constantly learning, and 13 years, and I can imagine in 26 years I'll be saying the same thing, because who Cal-I was is not who he is, and who I was is not who I am, and so
it's a version of, isn't it?
It's a version of, we've evolved and we have new interests, and it's like I found that we were slightly on different pathways, because Cal-I's now in the acting world. I'm kind of more developing in business, and we had to almost kind of not reintroduce ourselves to each other, but kind of find new interests that were common to both of us. So we'd like sit and watch these Netflix programs, and I'm thinking, oh, this is awful. And maybe he's thinking that about some of the ones, but then we found one that we loved, and then that was our commonality, and we'd watch it of an evening when the kids were in bed. So it was difficult. It was like we saw ourselves naked again, the naked truth of who we are and what our relationship is like now. And
kind of learning how to support each other on those new ventures. Because we'd worked together so intensely, and everything we did was together and very similar. Now it's very different, and we had to kind of rewire ourselves and learn how to support each other, even though we're doing things that are quite distinctly different.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think lots of people have that story, don't they, about lockdown, that it's actually been a time of change, of growing and seeing new things. And I think it's a great reminder for couples as well, that actually we're always learning, as you've just said, we're always learning new things about each other. We're going to sort of draw this to an end. There's loads more things I'd love to ask you, actually, because it's so interesting hearing about your story and how things have been for you. But what would you say are some of the sort of, the biggest life lessons that you've learned? And, just in terms of people listening, what would you suggest to people based on your experiences? Because we do learn from experiences, we learn from our mistakes. What would you say to people listening today?
Okay, I would say definitely make room for the evolving process.
Yeah.
So we are going to evolve, and we need to make room for that to happen, for us to grow, because that's been vital for us. Yeah. Just allowing ourselves to change and develop and empathise with one another and understand that actually, that we aren't the person who we were 10 years ago. So make room for that, definitely.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, and I would say where possible, avoid long periods without intimacy. And it doesn't have to be just sexual intimacy. It's talking, it's actually looking at each other in the eyes, eating a meal together, physical touch. We have instituted
honesty.
We've instituted that the 28th of every month is date night, because we were married on the 28th of July. And actually that has been life-changing, because we know that, yes, we'll have a couple of evenings here and there where we'll spend time with each other, but that 28th date is sacred, and we will spend that time together. Even our children say, where are we going this week? Are we going to grandma's? Are we going to... but it means that we are being intentional about being intimate, about being connected, about resetting, spending that quality time with one another. And I would really, really encourage that.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. Thank you for that, because I think it's easy to neglect one another, especially the longer you've been married for, life gets busy and full on, and your other half can get pushed aside if you're not careful. But it's about, as you say, being intentional. And back to what you said earlier about deciding, you're making a choice about that. You're making that time. So the bit that's more practical is set aside time, make this happen, make decisions. And then in the moment, you can really enjoy one another without the pressures and worries of, have we got time for it? Because it's carved out for that very moment. So brilliant. Thank you so much, Zara and Cal-I, for telling us your story here on the Relationship Hub. It's been so interesting and inspiring. And I'm sure you too have also found their story has really impacted you as well as you've listened to this video today. So please do like the video and, of course, subscribe to the channel, The Relationship Hub.